All right, here we are. So, this is going to be the first in probably a series of modding here. So, as the title says, I am the developer for the mod ViesCraft Airships. And as we can see here, I think I have everything set up. I'm using Eclipse, some basic information here for anyone who wants to actually listen. So, obviously, if anyone knows about the Minecraft modding, they know it's in Java. I use Eclipse just because it's the first thing I learned, and it's actually pretty awesome. As you can see here, I already pulled up some basic information, and I'm checking the stream here. Yep, and it looks like when I pull up the game itself, that shows. All right, so what is this mod? Let's start off with that. ViesCraft Airships. It is a mod that adds something to Minecraft that I thought was missing, and the way it came about is you have what, mine carts, you have horses, you have boats, you have nothing for air travel. So why not airships, right? They work the same way as the other things. They're entities that are spawned in the world. You can spawn them. And the reason why I'm actually doing this is because this is kind of show people when I say I do a mod rewrite, I'm literally going to be changing a lot of my code. So let's take a look at what the airships look like now. You have all these items, versions 1, 2, 3, and 4, and really I have settings in there where you can make one better than the other if you like the look of one if you're a server owner. But they all are pretty much the same. It's just a different model. That's one of the airships. Basic rundown, you can hop in it. Two people can sit in an airship at once, but only one person can pilot. One person can interact with it. You have different abilities here, different stats. This is, of course, a creative one, so it just automatically spawns with the best of everything. A little module system. Let's just put on the fuel. You need fuel to fly, and basically, this is what you can do. Pretty awesome, huh? So we're going to be fixing a few things because this is for version 1.12.2. I have this for other versions as well, but nah, right? Why even bother? It takes so much time to update to every single version because they all act so differently. So from now on, like all the versions I have out, for like 1.10.2, that's a final version. It still works, it's great, but all the changes I'm going to be putting in now are not going to propagate through. If anything, actually, all of these changes I put in now may not even make it to 1.12.2. I just may hold it all back for 1.13. It's because the way this is what I'm thinking of for the mod. You have all those versions, right? I want to trim it down. Like all of this spawned because I was playing in a server with a friend, and we both had a couple airships, and I hopped in his airship because it didn't matter whose airship you got in, right? Like I made mine, he made his, but I hopped in his and flew around, and I mean, it really didn't bring anything. It was like if we both made a mine cart on a mine track. Would I care if it was my mine cart that was made or his? They're exactly the same. So that's why I wanted to feel like, there was a little more progression. So that's why, you see like all of these stats here. You can see like speed, fuel efficiency, altitude, maximum altitude. So when you hop in, you want your airship, the one that the good one, right? The one that you pick the looks of. Um, that's where that comes from. So with all of this, with this coding, so far the list can change, but right now, basically, I want to look at my code and I want to do a lot of restructuring because I want to have one airship item that everyone spawns. None of this version 1, 2, 3, and 4, it seems like it confuses a lot of people. So one kind of airship, and I'm going to change the attributes a little bit that you just saw there. And they're going to be 4 altogether for an airship, and they're all upgradable. The first one's going to be type, and that's going to affect the overall value of your airship, whether it be uncommon, rare, epic. And as you level it up, the more valuable it is, the higher you can upgrade the other ones too. So, if you have your frame, for instance, and frame is another one, it's going to affect speed. If you have like a tier 2 airship type, then you can only get a maximum of a tier 2 frame that you can put on. You have to make your airship better to get the better, stuff. So let's move on. Each type, like each attribute, is going to have two parts. One is going to be how it actually affects the airship. The other one, the second one, is going to be the appearance that it does. So type, right? I went over it. Affects overall airship value. What the appearance is going to be is you will be able to freely choose the model of your airship. So if you want it to look like this, the version 4, the ViesCraft, you'll be able to toggle it on and off. If you want it to look like the version 2, the Viesigible, which right there, you'll be able to do that. And you won't have to carry around all these different items, right? They're all the same airship, so why not make it to where it's interchangeable like that? Complete freedom. You don't want to make one airship and be like, oh man, I kind of like this other version here. You don't have to worry about any of that. All right. Second thing is going to be, the second stat is going to be the frame. Your frame is going to affect your speed, and that's your base speed. You can enhance it with modules. We'll get to the module system, but it's just how fast can your airship go? And of course, with the frame appearance, it's going to be the frame skin. So if you have something like this, right, and you're like, you know what, I'm in a jungle, right? I'm in a jungle biome. That's where I made my town. So I want jungle wood. So you can put on jungle wood planks here, or you can go to the next page and jungle logs. You accept it, and then bam, like as you can see, it now has a new skin. And each tier that you unlock with this, like as you can see here in the appearance, go to frames. So each tier that you actually upgrade, so the faster it goes, the better it gets, you'll be able to get different things. Like if you want to look like coal ore, or maybe mossy cobblestone. Maybe you have stuff in ruins. Maybe you just want the really nice and you're blinging and you want it to be all diamond. There you go. You can freely change it. That's it, right? All right, and some of this, like if you already know the mod, it's a little redundant, but I've yet to put out any video. I see a lot of people putting out videos for this mod, and, a lot of people try and get a lot of the highlights, but, there's only so much Like at me creating it, I know exactly how everything works. I had to go through the code, right? I had to figure out the logic behind it. But I'll just continue on. Because the sooner I get through this stuff, the sooner we can actually start looking at the code. And I'll tell you what the first thing is we're going to do. But that's coming up. Getting ahead of myself. All right, next thing is going to be the engine. Engine's going to be your fuel efficiency. And with this one could change. Because I was trying to think, like, the way the airships are, like, that is the main engine that all of them share, but then all the models are all over the place. You have a couple engines here. With this one, you have that, but then you have this stuff in the back. No real engines there. So, like, the engine's this core thing here in the back. Little smoke's coming out here because this one's technically on. So what I'm thinking of is actually having like a particle effect that you can toggle on and off. And it'll be different things, like maybe around just the engine, there'll be like little sparks of fire shooting out everywhere. Or maybe it'll be like all around the airship, I'll have like different kinds of like, the runes for enchanting. Different things like that. And I have to make sure that it's just not invasive. Like, it'd be annoying if you were just sitting in your airship and you just see runes kind of flying across your screen. That would get a little annoying, I would think. So it would be, it'd be tasteful, I guess. But I'm not sure how much I can do, like what I can actually do with that. Because like the frame textures, there's 69 of them. 69 different frame textures. With the balloons, which we'll get to next, there's the ability for 69 of those. I still have to make a lot of the textures, but that's what the first change is going to be here. I'm going to be solving that problem finally. But, for now, it's particles. But we'll see. We'll see. Maybe I'll do something else. Maybe I'll remake the models and make the engines, I don't know, better. Okay, last one. I said it, balloon. Balloon affects your maximum altitude. So how high you can actually go up. Since this is max, I can go up to 200. If you see the heads-up display there, I'm 86 out of 200. 200 is my maximum. You can go higher than that with a module, but you know that's the way it is. Um, and that's what I'm thinking. And also, you notice like I changed the appearance just for free very quickly. That's also another thing I'm going to be changing. I'm going to make it to where there's going to be a slot in the appearance stuff. And you'll be able to put, for now, it's going to be redstone. I figure redstone is very plentiful. Usually, I know on servers I play on, you mine a lot of it, especially when you get like enchanting. If you're using Tinker's Construct, I mean, redstone is just like all over the place. But I figure redstone can be the fuel that you use. Like maybe toggling's changing your model. Maybe that costs, quite a bit of redstone. You can, and you'll be able to put it in your airship and it'll liquidate it. And it'll just stay in your airship. So if you break it back down into an item and then you throw it back out again, it's going to keep the value. So you don't have to worry about that. But I figured that's going to be like the conversion. Liquefy your redstone. You'll be able to see it inside your airship, and you'll be able to use it to change your appearance and maybe do some other things in the future too. Maybe I'll also make it to where, like, there's a certain charge for toggling on a module. Which, by the way, I might as well talk about that very quickly. If we look in the bottom tab, the module system's pretty unique, I think, because it takes something. I'll make it full screen. So it takes something like right now I have the greater infinite fuel. There are 3 tiers for each one, so you can upgrade them. And you can toggle it on and off. Like you could see like on the side there, on the little display in the airship, I even made it to where depending on what you have on, you can actually see just by looking on the outside of the airship. Trying to make this mod easy for people to just come into. But like the greater, like right here, you can fly without fuel, right? That's awesome. I mean, a downside is you have 70% speed decrease, but no fuel. You could fly forever. That's pretty great. There are a bunch of other things like, if you want to turn into inventory space, there's a slight speed reduction, but it turns an airship into a 27 slot chest. So you can go back to the main menu and look at that. You can store things in there. If you leave the airship, go back in, whatever, your stuff's still there. But it just, goes a little slower, and you can toggle it on and off. If you break this back into an item, it's going to pop all your items out, though. Just a warning. Yeah, that's a module system. It's a way for you to take an airship and then just use it as a tool, right? Because that's what it is. That's what a minecart is. You can put a chest in a minecart, right? Why can't you do it in an airship? So that's what I'm thinking here. And that's really all I have so far. But I'm going to be touching a lot of stuff because the 4 stats, I mean, those are going to be core changes. Making it to where everything's one item, those are going to be core changes too. Because the big thing I always have to deal with whenever I do this stuff is that people are using the mod actively now, right? And you have your airships out and you put your time in and your upgrades in and everything, and you've been depending on it. And it would really suck for you to update and then all of that stuff disappears because technically I have a new kind of airship. So I always have to come up with all this extra coding, and it really takes something like that I could do in a couple days and turn it into a week project. Because I have to sit there and be like, okay, now I have to make sure that when people use this item, it goes back and it converts to one of these behind the scenes. That way it kind of starts to prune out. Then I have to come out with another update where I shut off the item, but keep all the code in just in case something catastrophically screws up, I could just quickly revert it. And then if no one complains, then a little later I come out with a third update where I just prune everything back. And it's such a pain. It's such a pain. But let's take a look at one thing here. So the first thing I want to tackle, there are 2 things I want to tackle here, and I hope I can get to both of them in this stream. The first thing is going to be limiting all this down. Like I'm going to keep all these, but eventually I want this tab to go away, and I just kind of like ViesCraft items here. I just want the airship to be in here. I want it to be just part of the rest of the items. Done. None of this. Like, there's no need for all of these different types here. Like, sure, I'll have one item, and then I'll have it to where in creative, you can pull out each version just like this. But that's it. It's just going to be that. Make it nice and simple. That means you're going to see how I create a new item. You're going to see how and I'm going to do some copying of my classes because I want it to be an airship still. But I just said once I get a working item, can throw it out, it spawns what I want, I could break it back down into the same thing, then we'll be cooking. Because also I want to make it to where, okay, let's look at frames, right? For frames, this is version 4. It's shaped differently, therefore it needs a different texture. And for the appearances, there are 69 different texture files that I have to have, and then times that by 4, that's over 250 textures just for the frame appearance system that I have to update, that I have to have in the mod, and it makes the mod bigger, and it's a bigger download. And I like to be efficient. I like to trim things down when I can. So another thing that we're going to be doing here, this is the second thing I want to do, is for the appearance, I want to make one texture for like iron, let's say. And the iron texture is going to be able to wrap around everything because it's going to be like a background. I'm going to have a nice big iron texture, and no matter where the pieces are, it's going to just cover the airship. And then I want to have a second rendering on top of it. And what I want with that is that's going to be specific. So I'm going to have like pretty much 69, and then I'm going to have an additional 4, one for each model, because obviously with all of these, the engines are in the same place. All the version 4s, that piping is all going to be the same. The fins, right? How it's spread out here, how it's darker. That's all going to be the same. The darker part there. Excuse me. The symbols underneath are all the same. So that is what I'm going to be focusing on, cutting down the textures, because if I can do it on the frame, I can propagate it over to the balloons, and it's going to make it to where, because that's why I stopped with the balloons. You'll notice like a lot of the balloon patterns. Let's take a look at it here. Look at tier 4. You only get a creeper. Like, sure, the creeper skin's cool, the colorized to reverse. Like, that's still a pretty awesome airship. But the problem is, I love how the creeper just like hides behind the fin because they're stalkers. But you know what I mean? Like, there's only one thing, but it takes so long to make something like this. It would be amazing if I could just have one texture down, right? To where it's just like a repeating texture like this. And then I have another overlay on top because like the faces of the creeper are going to be in the same place, right? So why not have something like that? And I can I can just pump out things easily. Because like right now I have to make one of 4 different types of each texture. And it's a pain. It's a pain. And I am all about that efficiency. And another thing I'm gonna go through is I know that a lot of people aren't like watching the stream now, but when you watch the streams to come, any questions I get about like, hey, can you add like, guns, for instance? Make the airships fire guns. Like, I'm not going to do that. Not right now, anyways. And I'm not going to answer a lot of questions that are outside of the modding here, because if someone asks me, hey, how would you make a blank mod? Like, I'm just one guy, one opinion. I'm self-taught. There may be better ways to do all this stuff, but this is kind of like an inside view as to how crazy, I am as a developer. How I come up to certain things, give you a little clarity, an inside look, sneak peek, right? Behind the scenes. But any questions, like, I may either ignore or I'll just say, like, hey, I'm not answering anything like that. We're trying to stay focused on the modding at hand, right? All right. So without further ado, let's go ahead, log out of this. I'm going to hate that I didn't set it to daytime and statically set it. You know what? I'm going to do that very quickly because I'm going to hate myself when I'm trying to look at the models. And time set day. And let's change the game rule. Do daylight cycle to false. There we go. Now it will forever be sunny, and I will forever... Look at that. Look how great that looks. Nice, vivid. Let's make some magic here. All right, so let's look at my code, right? Now, right now I'm in the main, like it's pretty much like the glue that holds everything together, right? It activates, it does my pre-initialization, initialization, post-initialization, server, client, common, blah, 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 through the proxies. You know, it also deals with my creative tabs. But let's go ahead, and first thing I'm going to want to do is I want to make a new item for my new airship, right? So the way I actually do the items, and remember this is 1.12.2, is I actually keep all this stuff in a special little thing called items VC, items ViesCraft. Um, and if you look here, this is how I have the basic items set up. And what I want to do is I want to copy these two. And I'm going to bump all these down a little just to space it. And I'm going to just kind of keep it clean, right? A nice division. 3 spaces. It doesn't like, obviously, you know, the red there. You'll see a lot of that because we're going to have to change it. We're going to have to rename it. Since I'm getting rid of the versions, I am totally cool with it just being item airship and then item creative airship. Like, I am a-okay with that. Actually, now is the time when I can go a step further here and I can change the name altogether because I can have it be like item airship and item airship creative. Believe it or not, what I'm thinking about is when you're using commands to summon things, item airship, and then it'll give you both options, right? Or if you do item and then C, you'll only see the one. Item A, you'll only see the one. Why not make it to where you can see both? And that also means that we also have to change the name here. So item airship, and this is the registry name right now that I'm changing. If you don't know much about coding, like I'm not going to explain the registry and everything else. You know, this is just, we're diving into it, right? We're diving in. And you can take take it as write down like, oh, he said something about registry name. If you're new to it, just write it down and do a little research, right? Yeah, let's go ahead and terminate it. For every new item, like the way I had the way I launch everything is I do it through debug. That way, as long as I'm not adding new methods or new items altogether or anything, I can tweak something like the GUI. I can tweak it and change the variables, and you'll see it real time, you know, as I do it. But yeah, we don't need that up yet. Actually, I could just make this full screen. Okay, now let's focus on this. So now that we have these new items, what I'm going to have to do is this item airship version 1. Let's go ahead and make a new one of these. And I keep these in item, normal. And if you notice, like common items, airship items, I have a creative and a normal. That is actually going away. So I'm going to copy this because, right, I want it to be an airship. I have most of my core code there. So I'm just going to put it in the root here. And we're going to go ahead and rename it because I want it to be item airship. Nothing fancy, right? You got to keep it simple because you got to keep track of all this stuff. I have the item airship base, the item airship, and I'm going to have a creative, but we'll focus on item airship. Now what it does is, okay, I'll let you see here. I have my item airship base. And this has a lot of the core stuff, right? Like this is all the modules because remember, I have it to where you can break down these airships and it's supposed to keep all the information, what the airship looks like, right? What all the visual settings are, what the actual tiers are, you know, like what are the frame colors? Like if you did the coloring system, is it set to semi-transparent? What module is currently active? What modules did it learn? You know, it has all of that. So I'm going to come in here, and this is actually a great time to look here, right? Because I'm going to be passing new stuff. I'm going to do some core changes. So I want the model variant slot 1, you know, module variant slot 1. We don't have to deal with that. And if you notice, I have slot 1 because I plan on making it to where you can have 2 modules active at once. With a penalty, of course, right? But nonetheless, 2 modules active, totally awesome. So I prepped for it. But let's look at this here. Meta tier core, meta tier engine, meta tier balloon. Core isn't going to be a thing anymore, right? I didn't want core. So let's do protected int, and let's do meta tier, and this is going to be type, because that's the first thing I mentioned, right? Type is going to affect your model and how good it is. Core isn't going to be there. That is going to be the frame, and then the engine, and then the balloon. And the reason why I'm doing this like this, and the reason why I'm doing it like this is because, if I'm making the new item, I'm going to put the foundation in, right? It makes sense. So let's go ahead and look at everything else here. So the visual stuff, I'm going to have to come back in because so far I have the frames and I have the balloons. I don't even have the particle system in yet. I have the code to where, like, when you're moving the airship, it actually takes a lock on to your position. So it keeps the particle, like if it's on the engine and you turn, the particle doesn't all of a sudden go right in your face in your view. It's going to follow your engine point as you turn. Sine, cosine, tangent. Remember that stuff from school? It actually has a use. It's fantastic. Oh my god, fantastic. But we'll get to that as well. Okay, so all the modules, I'm not adding any new modules. Stack size, it's going to stay 1. It's going to stay 1 because you should not be stacking more than 1 airship. And I need to take a little break here. Look at that. I am ready. Fruit punch. Powerade 0. Ah, delicious. People are going to be watching the stream and be like, this guy is insane. All right, now let's look at the add information. And what this is, it's the tooltip. When you hover over the item, it's what's displayed there. We're not going to screw with any of that yet because none of that is really important yet. We'll have to come back and we'll have to pass the right information. But I mean, look at all this. That is a lot of information that I have in because I made it all. If you notice, there's no actual, like words because I made it to where you can, if someone gives me a file, with a translation, it will propagate it through. All right. So this is checking to see if there's a tag. That's what a lot of this stuff is. Okay, now this right here, the primary label color, it's going to have 5 tiers, right? So 1, that's the gray is the tier 0. That's the base tier. And then tier 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, the default will be gray. In a switch, I always like to put something as a default just in case, for whatever reason, if the metadata value ever comes up as 6 or 7 or screws up, then at least it's going to return something. It's not going to just say, I don't know what it is, and do something unpredicted, right? Because that's what we don't want in our code. We don't want it to be unpredictable. We want to know if we do A and then we do B, we want to know what C is going to be based on those two, and it should be the same every time if you do the same things. So that's fine. The get rarity, common, that's just using the basic Minecraft stuff. That's the color itself, like when you have a rare item or whatever and you hover over it and it's purple, it's because that's the rarity. So I already have it set up here, and you're probably wondering, what is this? The metadata 0, 1, 2, 3. We'll get into that as well a little further down right here, actually. So this is client side, and what it does is, like, basically with my airships, I like being efficient. You saw the version 1s, right? Version 1 had 1, like the base one, and then it had all the way to the creative, but there were like 6 altogether. This right here actually creates from one item the different variants of it. And based on the metadata, it assigns it a new metadata number. As you can see here, it takes the new item stack and it takes that. And there's only one that it needs because in an item stack, I always like to specify the amount too, because I don't like to leave it to chance. And then it gets the actual metadata. So that's how it does. So like if you have a tier 4, your metadata number is 4. So 4 is going to make it epic. 4 is going to pull up here and it's going to be light purple to go with the dark purple of the epic. It's all keeping that common theme. This right here is the old way. Get sub items. I haven't deleted it out yet just because I like to have some code as a reference just in case they flip flop back. What if 1.13, if it goes back to the old way of doing it for whatever stupid reason, right? It's commented out, doesn't hurt anyone. So that's a look into the base item airship here. So let's go ahead and save all my changes. I don't need that up anymore. Now, if we look here, we're extending all that base stuff. So it's inheriting all of the stuff we put in. And now it's going to bring it into item airship, right? So now we can go forward. It's going to be in the creative tabs. Let's go ahead and change this right here. Because in the creative tab, I want to get rid of the other tab, the airship tab. So I want this to be in the items. Item helper, that helps with registry. That's something behind the scenes. We probably won't get to that. That's part of like core, making a mod 101. Set max damage, this is important. You want to set it to 0. And I know this is going to change in 1.13 from what I read, but basically, you have to set it to where it has subtypes, and you have to set its max damage to 0. That way, it always knows, because the metadata value is actually along the lines of what the max damage is. So if you just zero it out and then let the metadata take over, you're fine. But that's how you create multiple items. Okay, let's go action result. On right click, what is it going to do? It needs to pass information to the entity that it spawns, because it spawns a ball. So you right click the item and it spawns the ball, and it passes through all of these numbers into that ball entity. And then on impact, when it breaks, it passes everything to the new airship it creates, all of your stats, all of your everything, and then it destroys that item, and then you have it there. Then when you break it back down, your airship passes everything to the item before it kills itself, and then you get the item back. That's how this works. That's how I found a way to make everything work. You got to be creative with stuff like this. Model variant, and this is all just base values, right? Because all of this stuff, these are integers. You gotta set it to something. You gotta initialize it. So let's go ahead and let's change that to frame, right? Because that's one of the things. And if you have nothing, I want it to start out at 0. I don't want you to throw a brand new item and then all of a sudden get, a tier 5, right? Frame, and then let's put in the type. And if you notice, I'm a stickler for things being in order. Makes it easier when you're just going through. The order of operations, I guess you could say. So basically what this is saying is if you throw it out and it has nothing, just base value, zero everything out. The color, the balloon color, you'll notice there are static numbers there. I picked a really crappy color for the airships balloons. When you throw out a fresh one, not the creative one one's white. The fresh one's the beige, crappy. Every time people get an apartment or a house and it's that cheap beige paint, they're like, ooh, I gotta paint this. Looks like crap. That's me trying to get people to use the coloring system, to change the color to something else, to push them to explore. And of course, I don't want you to be able to use any modules in something new. You got to earn that stuff. Okay, so now let's go in here. So if you're sneaking, right? So this is just initializing everything. It's not even using the values. I'm just putting in what the core values are. But all of this stuff, it would have a tag component. That's how I can save items, the metadata values and everything from item to entity back to item. I put a tag on it. And that tag holds all your information. Excuse me, the tag compound. So let's go into here. Obviously, we're going to have to change this, right? So it's going to be the frame, and we'll get to the other side. And let's go into here, and this is going to be, actually, frame's going to be there. This is going to be type. All right. So now let's go into here. So what I'm saying is, okay, for this variable, if it has a tag, for this variable, let's see whatever the tag is for whatever getting the integer, whatever the string, the key is, we're going to use that value instead of the 0. If it's still 0, that's fine. It doesn't care. It's just going to use that value if it sees a tag. But now we have to go into here. So I need to open up my references. And I'm going to need to add something new here, right? This right here, I'm going to cut out. I'm going to put it all the way at the bottom. This is the no man's land. If code is all the way down here, let's put a little divider up. So if code is down here, this is how I do it. If I see code underneath a bar and I look at it and I'm like, oh yeah, I took that out, that's a sign for me to okay, it doesn't need to be there forever. Eventually it will just forever be gone. Be forever alone. All right, and what I'm doing here is I'm just setting, it's a lot easier to do it this way. You could just type in a string, but if you have to type in that same string over and over and over again, it becomes repetitive. And if you make one mistake, one misspelling, you leave off anything on that string, it is a completely different tag, and you can lose all of your saved information. And people will be quite pissed if they just spent all that time to get a tier 5, because it's not easy to get. They get a tier 5 airship and then they break it back down into an item and they throw it back out and it's a tier 0, no tier airship again. You got to make sure this stuff is right. So what I do is, in one place, I define a final string. This thing is never going to change, is what I say. And I give it a unique name. So meta tier type tag. And then the actual string is going to be tier type. Like, that's all it is, just tier type. But every time I put this in, meta tier type tag, it will autofill for me. If I misspell this, it's going to come back and say, we don't know what that is. Get your house in order. So let's go back to here. And I'll show you, right? So we just did this. Core is, of course, still active, but let's make this type. Let's make this frame. And you notice it's fine. But if you accidentally said type TAGG, let's say, look at that. I got a problem. If I did tier and I spelled something wrong there, it would accept the string because it's still a string. So that's a really nice way to say, like, oh, something's wrong here. And look at that. It's happy again, right? So let's go ahead and save what we have so far. The visuals are not going to change. The learn modules are not going to change. I'm going to get rid of some of that spacing there. Sometimes you'll notice I have extra spacing, and you'll notice the way I have things bracketed. Like if you're used to having your semicolon, like if you're used to it like that or something, that's fine. You can program like that. But I like to, if I look at something, it's just easier. This is how I learned it, right? This is just easier for me to look at. And since I'm the only one that messes with my code, there you go. This right here says, like, okay, you threw the item, right? It had a tag, so we overrode anything that had a tag. If not, it's still using the defaults. But now I want it to where, like, if you're a player and you are not in creative, that's what that means, then I want the stack size, the item you have, to decrease by 1, which, since it can only stack to 1, it's going to get rid of the item. So you don't throw out an airship and then you have that, and you still have an airship in your hand, throw it out again, throw it out again. But if you're in creative, you should be able to do that. So that's what that does. Right here, next, we actually play a sound, and it's an explosion sound. What I do is, when it breaks, it does the experience, the bottle shattering. And then what I actually do is I generate explosions, but we'll get to that as well. And it's only client side. So it explodes up and all of a sudden your airship pops up. I thought it was really cool effects. Okay, so if the world isn't remote, which means if it's the server, because the server is the thing that handles all of your core data, the client always asks for the server. Never, ever, ever code something like this on client side only, because if you're playing on a multiplayer server, that has the final say. You'll be seeing one thing, someone else will be seeing a completely different thing. You guys won't be talking. So I want to say, okay, on the server, this is what's going to happen. On impact, we're going to spawn this item right here. It's going to be the item airship version 1. We'll just leave it at that for now. Here's that, and basically this is all the stuff that gets pumped into the version 1. Gets the metadata, gets the core, gets the engine, the balloon, blah, blah, blah. Let's go ahead and change this to frame. It's going to be a lot happier. Here we go. And it just passes all of the information in. That it says, okay, so my entity airship that I have up here, it's going to shoot. So when you do it, like when you actually toss it, it's calculating the trajectory of it, right? How fast it goes, how gravity affects it, the parabola. So it's not just something you throw and it just forever, just kind of beelines and it never actually hits any solid objects. And then, of course, it's going to spawn the entity. It's going to add, like this add stat list. That's something we'll get into before. The return result, if it's successful, good. The items used, it actually goes through the code. If not, if it just doesn't do any of this stuff, if you're sneaking and you throw it, that's a successful thing too, right? You got to make sure you're doing both sneaking and just throwing it too. Okay, and let's go here. Item stack display name. This right here is, of course, the name of your airship. We will have to tweak this once we get a little deeper, but that's really all this is. It takes the metadata and then it gives you the appropriate name. Not bad at all. So that's really just the base item itself. Let's save our changes. So now what we can do is we have this item made, right? But the item's actually not going to register or anything in the world because we're not really defining it anywhere else. What we have to do is come down to, I call it the initialization. And we have to go to items. And this right here is like if I have any code that I'm playing with or something temporary, like if I'm pruning out a bunch of items, I move it to here as a note to myself. But if you look here, this actually registers the item. This tells Minecraft, hey, by the way, there's this item called an airship. It's really cool. You can use it. Here's all the information. This is like the key to the ignition. So right in here, let's do item underscore, and remember, it's called airship. It's nice and simple. Put a comma in, bam. Now, if we let's just debug the game here. We should have an item, but the item won't have a texture yet because we didn't do anything in that part. And we didn't even create a texture for it, which will be pretty quick. It'll be pretty quick. But at least it'll be something that's spawned in the world, and we should be able to use it as well. So it's going through, blah, 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 loading up Minecraft, loading up my mod. I love seeing VC in there. Oh, ViesCraft. Awesome. Awesome to the max. So now we should know where to look, right? It should be in the creative tab for items, not airships. Remember, want to get rid of airships. So let's go over, go into my items, and it should be, actually, it looks like it's not there. I wonder what happened. If we look over here, oh, look at that. So what does that tell you, right? This is part of the troubleshooting process that a lot of people don't see. Code doesn't always work exactly how you think it will, but I should still be able to get the item, right? I can hold it in my hand, and let's shift, right click. Oh, looks like it wasn't happy either. You guys are going to get all the fun. No, I don't want to launch that perspective. Yeah, sure, whatever. If you're going to want to do that, to minimize you, I don't care. Let us... God, I hate this. I should have said no. Okay. So it looks like it failed out here. So what was it doing? Oh, it looks like it was trying to take item airship version 1. I know what we didn't do. So let's go ahead and shift this over here. And let's go ahead and... I just want to get the sidebars back. Oh, crap. How do you do that? Eclipse. You're killing me. Let's minimize that. And we want navigation back. So navigate to... Let's not do previous member. I've done this once before. Whenever it crashes like that, it can be quite annoying. So I know how to navigate without it. Let's just go to the top. So I activated the item airship. This is the problem right here because remember, I had to make the item for it. I never actually took off the version 1. I have to do that, and I have to import. That right there should have fixed that part of it. And actually, that would have fixed the creative tab issue as well. So let's go ahead and terminate this, right? We don't need that up anymore. Let's look at the console. Yep, and in the console, you can see right here, like, there was a problem. Couldn't authenticate. Oh, the debug. Terminated. I'll be able to show you more of that too. But this right here, this means that I'm doing it offline. It means that Yggdrasil, it's the main Minecraft stuff. It means that I didn't authenticate with their servers, which I'm just developing stuff. I don't need to ask Mojang, hey, I'm Vices, like that's my name in the game, not Vice. Vice is a newer change. But yeah, like, hey, I'm Vice, like give me my character skin, give me, let me log into your servers. This is really annoying that it did this. I could run it right now, but I want to get all my stuff back up. It's not refresh. Let's minimize it here. Doesn't matter how far we explore here. What is that called? It's like right on the tip of my tongue. I thought it would be under navigate. Open hierarchy. Nope. That's actually something that I minimized. Navigate. Show in. Nope. Last edit location. I bet you. I'll deal with it later, right? You guys want to see that, not how to fix Eclipse when it has a little heart attack. Although it's going to annoy me if I don't find out what it is. I could just Google it fast. Refractor, no. I really thought it was show tool description. I should put that on. See, I really thought it was something here. There's some kind of button up here, I think. I know it's something so easy, so stupid. Variables, breakpoints, we don't need any of that. Just minimize that crap. Okay, well, whatever. We'll just go up here. We'll click debug, proceed. But this actually should have fixed a lot of the issues. It should be in the correct creative tab. It should be pulling from the correct item airship version. And it should actually be spawning something legit. Because remember, there's no core anymore. It's now called frame. And it's passing something new as well. While that loads up. Take your time loading. Eclipse navigation pane. Window, show view, navigator. So window, show view. What do we got here? Console, no. Doesn't even have navigator anymore. Expression, display. General, navigator. So that's the navigator. Let's move it over here. There we go. This is what I like. Okay, so now, perfect. Let's go into here, Java, com, ViesCraft. Here we are. Bam. Okay. See, and you guys learned how to do that. Not willingly, but if it ever screws up on you, at least you got that. Hey, Revolts. I'm doing all right. I'm actually going through doing some programming, showing people how I make the mod that I make. I'm actually adding stuff to it as well. All right, so if I got everything done correctly now, we should have a brand new item, and this is going to be an airship. It's not going to have a texture yet, because remember, we didn't get that far, but it should be in the correct tab. So if we go over to the items tab, there it is. So we could take one of our items here, and we should be able to just hold down shift, right click, it threw it, spawned an airship. That is exactly what we're looking for. And this is a completely unrelated item to all the other ones we want to take out. So, bam, right there. Yeah, I'm actually making a video too. I'm going to be uploading it to YouTube. And this is actually going to be under the video clips in Twitch as well. But yeah, I mean, I figure I'll give people a behind the scenes look as to how I actually come up with what I come up with, how I develop something. Okay, so we have an item. Let's give it a little something extra, right? Like, looks like it's taken the names okay. It's taken the actual coloring that we went through, the enums for it. With each meta tier, and that's why I told you that each item, like even though I have technically one item, you can spawn different sub-items using metadata. This is what all of that does. And I could add more tiers if I want at any time. It's pretty awesome, pretty robust. So if I ever come up with another tier, and I'm like, let's make one harder. All I have to do is go to the one place, add the new tier, say, okay, it's metadata 7 now, or 6, whatever the next one is in line, and it will automatically spawn it off when the game starts. I have to do very, very little. But let's put a texture on it. What I want to do is I actually want to keep my original textures. I just want to get rid of that little version 1 because I'm getting rid of the versioning. There's no reason to have all of this other stuff. So let's do that. So we'll move this over to the side, go back to our code. First thing we're going to have to do is we actually have to go, I have a different folder for all the client stuff because remember, the server and the client has to be separate. You can't run client code like anything visually on the server. It's going to crash the game. So you have to keep that stuff separated. And what we can do is we can actually go to items, right? This is my renderer for it. And of course, now because of the stupid little hiccup, I'll open it down here. Client. Let's go to items renderer. Here we go. All right. So this is what my renderer looks like. And it's actually going to be really easy the way we render this. If you look here, I already created, I mean, the core systems are already in, right? Like I have all of this stuff here for the engines, the module types, everything. So we're adding a new item. All I have to do is come up to here, and I'm going to use a for statement. I'm going to use one of these. I'm going to be deleting all this stuff when we have something working, and this is going to be it. I'm going to put a comment here, and I'm just going to call it Airship. It's just something, to where when I'm looking at my code, all the commented stuff when you, when I actually get something to produce for people, it clears it right out. It doesn't include it. So you can comment up as much as you want. And we're going to want to make sure that we're actually registering our item airship based on the metadata because we're going to want a different texture for each metadata variant of the same item. So this right here, it's going to be, it's actually using the core. So let's look at enums. I'm not sure if anyone knows what enums are, but enums, like an enumerator, it's basically, I'm saying something like base has a metadata value of 0. This is the registry name. This is the localization for it in case you wanted to translate it to Russian or whatever. I do English. I speak English. I don't do any other translations. Anyone that wants to do a translation, I'll add it to the mod. But, and speed modifier in this case. But what we really want here is I don't want to just run it off of a speed modifier. I want to make a brand new enum because remember, okay, going to leave you do your thing. We'll watch the video. Yeah, no problem, Revolts. I don't know if you play Minecraft or not, but it's a pretty fun game. You should give it a try. And as soon as when the Rift Prime servers come up, I will be streaming that, and I will be playing that pretty hard. Making my rogue. But yeah, take care, Revolts. Okay, so the enums. I mean, I could leave it as the core enum, but I really like to be thorough with what I do. So we're going to make a brand new enum, and it's going to be just like the core, right? We don't need to reinvent the wheel if we already made something that rolls. So let's go up to here, and we're just going to make a copy of, because it's still going to have the 5 tiers. And what we're going to do here, this is not going to be for the frame, this is going to be for the type. So we're going to change this to type, and we're just going to change some of the keywords, right? Because the tier base, we can keep that the same. All of this right here, the localization, the enum tier, that's all going to be the same. What we don't need is any kind of HP modifier. That's going to be in another thing. You guys are getting a sneak peek. I do want to add hit points to the airships, but we're just going to leave that as is, right? Doesn't harm anything. Let's go here. We're going to have to change this to type. And basically what I'm doing is I'm saying like anything with the airship type tier, you can put whatever information you want. Like I can say, okay, this is going to be the metadata. This is going to be the HP. I can do that all on the fly. That's why we make enums, right? So a lot of repetition that you have to go through. You don't have to keep track of 20 different variables in your head, 20 different ways to do it. It's all here in its wonderful glory. So we got to change that to type, and then we just have to change this as well. So what did I just do, right? That's probably what everyone's thinking. I have no idea what all this means. Look at it. Localized name, HP, all these weird things. Well, let's actually see what we just did. Let's use what we just did. Let me save that. Go back to, I don't need that up anymore. Let's go back to not references. We want to go back to our items. So what I'm saying is, okay, take everything, type. It's case sensitive, by the way. Take everything and type here, and just run through how many metadata, like what's the maximum metadata amount, right? So if I have 5 tiers, with tier 0 being the base tier, technically there are 6 because 0 is included. It's like a one-off. So 0 through 5 is 6 items altogether. But I don't want to keep track of the items, because what if I want to make another tier and make a tier 6, and then there'll be 7 items? And then I have to touch every line of code to add it in. That's the best part about an enum. So this right here will just, what it's saying is, okay, for whatever metadata value you're on right now, going through to the maximum value, like what's the maximum values, generate an item with that metadata. So it starts at 0, and it says, okay, 0, but the maximum's 5. So, we're going to create an airship for 0, but we're not done. So let's do the for statement. Oh, there's a 1, but we're not up to 5 yet, and it does that, and it just plows through. What I can do is, if I want to create another tier, all I have to do is just copy this. So if I want, let's say, to make a tier for my 6, right? And then I can change this to 6, change the metadata value to 6, blah, 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 change this to whatever, 14, change this localized name to 6. That right there, and just make that a comma, that right there, as soon as I create an item, it will spawn 6 different variants of it. Amazing, isn't it? But that's all I need to do now, because I set up my code to where I don't want to have to, create another unique item when it's all using the same code. Why not be efficient with it? I don't want 6 tiers, so we're just going to get rid of that. But that's where all of this comes in. So finally, back to here. That's really all I need to do, because it's going to take anything from the airship based on the metadata, and it's going to pull it up. Pretty awesome. Let's look down here. Register renderer. Register render tier airship. Let's see what we're doing there. So we're taking that item, taking the metadata value, and then we're just inserting it in here. What I'm doing to make it special is I say, okay, get the registry name. So item airship. And then you're going to add onto that string an underscore, and then you're going to add this right here. Let's change this from frame to type, not all capital. So whatever the actual name is, the registry name, so like the tier 0, tier 1, tier 2, everything in the enum, this right here, tier base, tier 1, 2, 3, 4, that's going to be part of the name. And that's how we're going to be able to tell the separate items apart. And I know a lot of this is like probably, I don't know, some people may not know this. So like, I get the name, I register the item with the name I created, the actual item. And then we get the mod loader and we take the item, take the metadata value, which is important, so we know what to assign the texture to. And then we get the resource location, we use the name, and we say it's going to be part of the inventory. Nice and easy. So let's go ahead and pull up this right here. Let's go under VC. Let's create a quick texture. This is going to be a pretty easy thing to do. I already know what the texture is going to be. Airships. I'm going to copy all these. You guys can't see this right now. I'm just getting things set up. So basically, what I'm doing is I'm copying the tier 1, right? And I'm just getting rid of the underscore V1 in the name, because ideally everything else is going to be the same for every tier. And I'm even going to do this for the creative airship as well. Let me just open up one of these fast. I'm going to add to so you guys can see what I do with the textures as well, because, we got to do it. So what I want to do is, I don't want to do a video. Yeah, actually, I don't want to do video capture device. Let's remove that. I probably should have set this up beforehand, but, you guys are seeing I want to do a window capture. I'm just going to label this as, what I use is paint.net. It's free, it's robust, it does everything I need it to do. Yep, I know it's black right now because it's on the top. Let me just find paint.net. There we go. Okay, so good. It's right there. And you see, like, my icon's tiny. It's 32 by 32. This is just one of the random ones. I'm just going to close it out. Good. So I'm going to rename these. And then we will take a couple seconds to go ahead and to actually change the texture. So we'll be able to make sure, like, hey, this is the unique texture. So let's start with the tier 1. Why not? So basically, I want the top and the bottom to be, I want to get rid of this version 1. Easiest way for me to do this, and I know it's cheap, but I'm just going to copy this and I'm going to stretch it down. Right, there we go. Look at that. Got rid of it. Save it. Bam. And that's it for that one. That's what I'm going to do for all of these. It's so simple. Like when you understand like what you want to do, like the changes literally can be this fast. Because these are such small textures anyway. Sure, I could try and put maybe one little pixel here or another one there. Why bother? No one's going to be studying the item. The only reason why they're even going to have the item is because they want the airship that's locked inside of it, right? So we're going to just continue doing this. And remember, like for each tier, you notice the color changes because you have to have some kind of visual cue that it's a different item. Also with the name and everything else. And I tried to make it to where the colors itself kind of go along with, if it's epic or uncommon or, whatever it is. Here's this right here is the maximum tier that you can get, by actually playing the game legitimately. So we'll close that. This is the base tier. This is the gray boy, the crappy one, the crappiest of them all. And you notice I did something with this too. Like you notice the inside color. The outside color is where it is. The inside color is what the next tier is. It's the next tier's color. So like white, and then from tier 1, it's white, but it has yellow. Tier 2, it's yellow, but it has blue, and it just kind of feeds in like that. Let's go ahead and do the creative as well. The creative was just something random. I kept the yellow and made it orange. Thought it looked more badass that way. Probably wrong though. Okay, so we have the items here. I moved them in the right folder. So here we go. Now, if everything is right, let's go down to our resources because now we have to add a couple more things. We have to go under models, under items. And again, you guys may know all of this already. It's fine if you do. It's fine if you don't. But now we have to take all of these. I'm going to have to copy all of these. And I might as well put them... Yeah, I'll put them right in the root here because I'm going to have to change them all. I have to change their names. See, a lot of this stuff, it's a little repetitive. That's tier 1. See, I just have to get rid of the version 1 for all of them. And with this, I could probably it may be a little faster if I had brought up a Explorer window, because then I wouldn't have to exactly hit like the F2. Well, I mean, hitting the F2 key, you could do that in Explorer too. Guess it really doesn't matter. See, I tried to nickel and dime myself on time. Like, it's fine the way I'm doing it here. Like, it's not hurting anyone or doing anything crazy. So we have all of this, right? I'm going to copy it all back. All of it here. And we're going to move it all back into the Airships tab. Reason why I took it out first is because if I tried to do it, it would have copy of, and it would put it at the end, and I'd have to delete something in the middle and something at the end. It's a pain to do. So now let's go to all of our stuff right up top here. So the base tier, we have to go into it and we have to tell it where the texture is. I put it in the root of the airships, so I got rid of the V1, and I got rid of the V1 here. Like, that's literally all I have to do. And that one's done. What I can do is I can take it a step further. I could do a find and say, okay, so anything that's underscore V1, and it's case sensitive, replace. See, it did that, but now I'd have to do something. I'm just going to manually delete it out because there's the the slash there. But, replace that. delete that. See what I mean? Like, it's not that bad. It's not that bad to do. But see, that's the pain of the tier system. That's why I want to make one item. There's no need for all of these extra things. No need at all. Especially when it's all the same airship. Like, the only thing that changes between the tiers is the model. You should be able to change the model anytime you want. You shouldn't be penalized for it. And that's what I want to do away with. You know, it's like, and I could have done it to begin with, but you never know these things, right? It's through playing and being like, that's a better way to do it. So ideally, everything should be done. Let's go ahead and test it. Let's close this out. Let's run it fresh. Run it fresh. And we'll go through the troubleshooting because there are things you can miss. There's a lot of different parts you have to touch, as you can see. But, I mean, the core thing we need to do first is we need to make this new item, this new airship. Next, after we get an actual working item, we will... What's Steam trying to do? Visceral. Okay, someone's on snooze now. I don't know why I had to tell me that. Okay, so let's open this up. Actually, before we do anything else, let's take a look at this here, right? Because what we can do... Actually, I want this extended down more. I'm going to change my navigation a little bit. There we go. That's what I like. I like to have that space. You know, I have things set up a certain way. You know, it irks you if you don't have it the way you want. Okay, so technically I could come down here, and I should be able to see if there are any problems with loading the textures, because I'll have errors. And there's only this right here. That's actually, I know what that error is. I'm playing around with recipes. It's another thing I want to do, because the new recipe book, I want to incorporate that in it. Pain in the butt. But there's nothing else other than that. It went through the initialization, my post-initialization. JEI was happy. So, ideally, look at that. We have a texture on our item in our hand. Amazing, isn't it? So technically, there are my airships. See, took the metadata value. We assigned things in a clever way. We could have made 6 different items, but you would have 6 versions of the same code that it all uses. Why bother, right? Hovering over, Weistenbergs all around. The name will probably be changing to Airship. Like, the reason why everything, a little history, I didn't expect people to play on my mod. I made my mod for me, right? I love the old-fashioned Airship mod. The guy stopped developing it. For years, I went without it, and I'm like, you know what? I'm bringing it back. I'm creating my own. You know, then I can do anything I want with it. So I didn't think people would download it, so I, you know, since my name at the time was Vies, you know, like ViesCraft, Weistenberg, Zeppelin, Vieseline, I just put my name as a prefix to everything, just because I was having fun with it. I mean, I kind of regret it now, because, you know, it's kind of, it makes it seem like I'm kind of vain, but I just did it as a joke. But, you know, these will be changing to airships, and then, you know, depending on the model you pick. We'll get into that, though. So, I mean, that's what we're looking at here. So we have our item. Hooray, right? Now, let's make some changes, because all our core changes were just for the item. When you throw the item, if you see, it creates a little ball, creates an entity, and then it explodes into the airship. Next kind of code we have to touch is that ball, that entity that we throw. Because right now, we're passing certain pieces of information through. We have to change it to where it's going to take our new variables, right? Our type and our frame. Get rid of the core. We'll be good to go. So let us pull up. I want to go to, we don't need bin open. We need this open. And I want to go to my common file. And I want to go into entities, airship items. See, again, I try to organize everything, because the entity for the airship item is completely different than the airship item. And both of those are completely different than the airship logic. So you gotta keep things in line. So let's take a look at this. Let's take a look at the core. The core, we're passing the frame, we're passing the core, we're passing the engine, balloon. You know what? We're not going to be passing that core anymore. We are going to name this frame because remember, I like to keep things organized and type. So that's our new information that we're passing. Everything else, perfect, right? It's all the same stuff. So basically, all this does is it's just straight pass through. It's saying like this is the root stuff, like the gravity, velocity, the actual velocity. All of these will propagate all across the board. I want to use the same code for everything. That's why we create a base file, right? A base class, and then we extend that class. Like this right here, I'm getting all my variables out of the way. I'm making it protected. So if it's not being extended, or if it is, if it's being like, I want to use these variables inside this base class and then anything it extends it to. I don't want it to be public. I don't want every other thing. I don't want to be on my particles, and I don't want to accidentally be able to pull up something here. It makes no sense. Particles shouldn't care about the velocity, right? It shouldn't care about any of the metadata values, nothing. So that's kind of what we do here, and I don't want to make it private because you guys should know the difference. Private's going to be everything just in here, not what it extends out to. So, it's always nice to have like a handle on your, because I'm adding new items. I can't keep the developmental, can't keep Minecraft running. So, I mean, that's the core. Now let's go through here. We're going to copy version 1. We're going to paste it. We're going to rename it because we're getting rid of the version 1, and let's get rid of the copy of. This is all I want. Entity item airship. Nice and simple. This right here, let's go ahead and true this up. We want to extend this, get rid of that version 1. Yeah, entity item. Yeah, let's go ahead and make that version 1. Here we go. Now things are looking a little better. Let's get rid of this version 1, and I'll explain what all this is doing. Okay, so basically now this is the ball that you saw. Right now this is the like head method, if you want to call it that. Like I'm taking what world it's in. I'm taking that it's an entity, that I spawn in the world. This right here, the frame in, nope, we're going to name this type in. Core in, nope, we're going to name this frame in. Remember, keeping things organized. So right here, and basically all this is I'm saying like, okay, for this like head like getter, I want to make it to where the variable that I made for the type gets passed into the airship itself, the item I spawn. That right there gets taken from it. You need to build your roadways, right? To where your data can travel. You don't want to screw something up here because then when you spawn your airship, something's going to be wrong. Things aren't going to be in the right place. If you have a tier 5 and a tier 5 type, tier 1 frame, you don't want to switch those twos up because you don't want to have someone spawn and be stuck at a tier 1 frame but a tier 5 or tier type 1 and the tier frame of 5. You want them to be correct. So, and that's basically what all this is doing. It's assigning the private values here that we're going to be passing to whatever the actual variables are that were in the base class, what we're extending here. So, this is just like another thing for the item entity world, the XYZ. On impact, this is important. So we want to do this on the server side. The server's the one that decides what spawns. If you had this firing off on the client too, there'd be a lot of problems. Don't want to do that, not at all. So this is what we do. We play the sound, right? So we're saying on a server, play this generic explosion. Make it to where it's this loud, because we don't want it just ear-shatteringly loud to where everyone in the entire server can hear one airship go off. And then after it plays, and when it plays the sound, it says, okay, now we're going to spawn this entity, right? So we're going to want it to be an entity item airship. And we're going to say, okay, in this world, position X, I changed the position Y because I have it to where it sits a little higher so it gradually goes down so you don't throw something and have it spawn into the ground and then float down below the blocks. Here we go. So frame, nope. We want this to be type. We want this to be the frame. And then the engine, the balloon, everything else is fine, right? And then we want to kill off the ball. We don't need it anymore. Once it spawns what it needs to go away. So set it to dead. And then we say else. So that's for here. So if it's remote, right? If it's not remote, if it's the server, you're going to do this. If it's not the server, so else means if it's the client, we're going to generate particles for the explosion on top of that item, and this what we're looking at, this entity, that's where the explosion happens. So this right here, now we're looking at it, entity airship core. Why isn't that coming up okay? Well, it's because that is actually over here. That's the next thing we're going to do. So everything else here is fine, but we're going to keep it open because when I make the core, I'm going to have to import it here. Because right now, it doesn't know what it is. It's trying to make it to where you could change it to something that's already in your environment, right? So let's go ahead up here. We'll take the version 1 core and we'll just make a copy of it. We'll get rid of the version 1, right? Because this is just the core. So, bam. Now this, see, what I can do now is I could actually come over here and I can import it in and it should be okay. Airship 1 core. That's right there. Let's open it up. Let's fix a couple things here. Anything version 1 we want to get rid of, which actually isn't as much as you think. Get rid of some of this base stuff. And all of a sudden, look at that. Just by those 3 changes, everything's happy here, which means that everything should be happy here. Look at that. It sees it. So let's go ahead and import it. Bam. Save it. Now we're done here. So everything in that ball is going to spawn what we want. It's passing the correct data because it's getting it from the item tag and it's saying, okay, this is all the information I have, my color, everything that I'm going to spawn. And then it spawns the actual entity based on all of this. So we don't need this up anymore. We're done with that part. Now let's look at the actual airship. So for the airship core, what we want to do is we want to look at this and remember frame tier in, core tier in. These are just internal names. It only means something to inside of here. But we want to change this, right? We want it to be type, and we want to get rid of core, and we want to make that frame. Come down here. Well, we want this to be type, and we want this to be frame. Same thing here. This should be frame, and this should be type. Now you notice, it's not happy. It's because we didn't create this variable yet. So let's go where our variables are, which is actually in the base. It's right here. It's not in the core because remember, I like to keep common code together, separate things out. So let's go up here. Yep, meta tier core. Well, isn't that just precious? We don't need that. I want to get rid of that altogether. That shouldn't exist in the new airships. Type, frame, engine, balloon. Let's save it. And actually, it looks like we were using it in a couple places. So come over here. Well, would you look at that? We have to change things here too. So this is going to be type. Frame is already there. Engine. So we're looking good there. We're not doing anything else here. We get to create a data manager. So again, let's save it. Come back to the top. If you don't know what a data manager is, it's basically how the servers and the client communicate, right? So if an airship does something on the server side, it's how it propagates through and how all the clients know that it did something, right? If you turn an airship on, it needs to propagate through, and everyone should see that that airship is on, not just the person who turned it on. Man, this drink is delicious. Delicious. So we're going to create a new data manager. So I'm going to come down here. I'm going to totally get rid of the core data manager. I don't need it. Not here anyways. We don't need your crap here. And for this data manager, it's going to be pretty simple. I want the top one to be type. I want it to be an integer. That's already right. I want it to be within this base class, and I want it to be a variant of it. It's something that's a number, right? Because it's an integer. That's all I have to do to make that part of the data manager. Come down here, blah, blah, blah. So back to here, type, frame, engine, balloon. Everything's in order. Set the position right. Now when it initializes the entity, I want it to be type. We want to use that data manager, right? And I want to take whatever the metadata is for the actual type, whatever the actual type is, the integer that I created. I want it to be put into this data manager for the type to type. It's the pathway. The data manager I made here, the airship type tier that I just made at the top, that is just a road. It's a dirt road that I made down the countryside, and it's allowing whatever this number is to be propagated through so everyone can see that number. So we go down here. There's a few more adjustments we have to make. Obviously, we're saving information. Remember that tag I made before in my references that you can screw up? We have to use it here too. And it has to be identical. So let's go ahead and pop this like this. Let us rearrange it. All right. So I don't care about core. I want the type. And remember, for the type, if I make a misspelling, that's why we made it a final, to where it's never going to change. So if I accidentally put like a lowercase g, oh, error. It's very important, and this is case sensitive. So this is what I'm writing to it. This is what I'm saving. So what I'm saying is, okay, so the type, it's called this. This is the key for it. This is the actual value for it. Frame is the same way. But now you have to do something. You have to read it. So we're going to do the same thing, right? Come down here, paste that. We want this to be the type. So we want to say like, okay, for reading it, whatever the stored tag is for the type, we're going to read it. It's like taking an item, right? Like I take something and I put it over here for safety. And then I want to get that item back. I just reach in and then pull it back out. It's a two-way street. I build a road going one way, got to build a road going back the other way. That's all we're doing here. And then, let's look at some things. On update, this holds some of my actual controls. A lot of this stuff will glaze over, like water damage, what it drops for parts, how it calculates that, like your maximum height. This is like all the root getters that I use in like the base code, the main code, because this is just like the baby code, the little child code. This keeps all my variables nice and neat. This keeps all of my base things, for like calculating airship height. Like the fuel per ticks based on whatever, the actual percentage, blah, 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 all of this stuff. The speed, basic speed. We want to come down to where it's red over here on the side. Oh, you can't see it. Maybe if I make it full screen. I'm waiting. I'm looking at this stream right now. I just want to make sure you guys see everything too, because this is how I know there are errors. Come on, Pass Dave, pull it up. Oh wait, actually I think it is full screen right now. Okay, let's go ahead and move this so you can see. So that's the window capture, overlay, webcam. It is this guy, Eclipse. So you see on the corner there, the side, like the little bits of red. Like I'm on it right now. That's how you can tell in Eclipse, like if there are any problems. That's how I'm able to go through and like pinpoint what I want. Okay. So now we have to make a couple more changes, right? Core, no, it's called type. A lot of repetition. Here, core, nope, that's also called type. Oh, didn't like that. That's because this is actually a method. So if we go further down, I guarantee you will find that method. Basically what this is doing is this updates the airship. So if it's remote, like the tier equals what the getter is. It's attaching the roadway, the data manager roadway, so it can retrieve information and save it. So that's all we're doing here. We're retrieving information here, and we are saving information here. So the type, and change this to type. And this is going to be upset. There it is. And the reason why those are upset is because if we go further down, these are the root getters. This is the setter and the getter. This uses the data manager. This is the thing that does the actual work. This is your car that drives down the road. So basically, core isn't going to exist. It's now called type. And this is now called type as well. So basically, we're just going to, instead of just typing in type, I'm just going to copy it. Make it a little easier. So I'm going to change this. Tier core is no longer a thing. That's called type. That's the data manager that we made at the top. And so basically, all I'm saying is you're going to set the data manager of this to whatever the value is of this, the value that we're saving, the value that we're reading from the airship. It's a lot of repetition, guys. I know it is a lot of repetition, but this is coding. You have to tell the code exactly what you want it to do. And here we go. And now we have the type here. Now, if you notice, all the red's gone on the sides. So let's go ahead and save this. So ideally, we shouldn't have to be in here anymore. This is all my setters and getters, blah, blah, blah. I'll just skim through this code so everyone can see. It's a lot of stuff. That's why I separate it out, because all this is just like the building blocks. This is your wrenches and your tools and your nails and your hammers. This is all of it. We don't need this open anymore. We're going to go back to the main airship because we're not done here. Look at all of that red. All of that red. It's actually not going to be as bad as you guys think. Let's start at the top. We'll just skim through because once we're done with this, most of the core stuff, we created a new airship right here. Most of the core stuff will be done already. So type, yep, frame. Come down here. This is taking all those variables we got from that little ball that exploded, and this is how it feeds everything into it. So let's go down here. Look at that. It seems a little tidbit upset. I don't blame it. And it's a little tidbit upset because this should be frame and replace core with frame here. You notice, where's the type? The type is actually going to be right up here. It's the metadata value. That 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, that we attach pictures on and everything, we're using that same value to dictate what the type is. It's amazing. All right. So basically, this is a way, like when you get an item back, it puts the correct tagging on, gives you the right type back. All right. So we got the frame, we got the type. So when it spawns an item, it creates a tag and attaches it to the item. This is for what am I looking at, Walia? So when you actually have the mod and you hover over, you see the name pop up. A little something extra. Now let's go all the way down. Look at all this red here. But if you notice, a lot of this stuff is red because it's wanting to know what the core is, wants to know what the type is. We'll deal with it right now. So with this, we're doing speed, right? Let's look at our enums because we don't want to use the actual type for this. Speed is dictated by the frame, remember? A lot of stuff you got to keep in mind. So I don't want to use this, the type. I want to come down to the frame because the frame is actually going to be the thing that's going to be the new core. It's going to have all the speed. So let's go ahead and change it up here. Bam. Now, just from that simple thing, and I like to update everything up here too. So it's not HP, it's speed. And I'm going to put a comment in here, old do not use. That's just for me. So right now, if I hover over it, look at that, old do not use, and then it gives me what it is. It's just, remember, you got to touch your code. You got to know what's going on. Because when something breaks, you have to fix it. I can't just go and say, like, hey guys, my airships are crashing. What am I doing? It's relying on me to fix what I wrote. So right now, the frame is dictating our speed. These are our speed modifiers right here. So let's go back to here. So anything that's core, we want to change it to frame. Look at that. 1 down, right? Here we go. 2 down, 3 down, and 4 down. And basically, this is why we make enums. Because what I'm doing here is I'm going into the file where I have my enum, and I'm going into the airship. I'm saying this is the tier core. We want to say the frame. Get the frame here, get the frame here, and get the frame here. We're going to be changing a lot of things to frame. So what we want to do is in here, HP modifier, nope, we don't want to do that. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually just going to copy all this because it's all pretty much the same. And then I'm going to start from here because we need to make the setters and getters and everything, right? So this right here, speed, let's change. I know I'm doing stuff a little fast. I know exactly what I want to do, what I have to do. There we go. So now everything should be set up for the frame. Frame is now speed. It has the like the float value that I made for speed, and I do a float instead of a double because I don't need that many decimal places, and it can't be an integer because I need fractional changes. So I'm saying, okay, so anything for your speed modifier input, it's going to equal your speed. This is the getter, get speed modifier, it gets the speed. Sounds so redundant, but guys, like it is just amazing because it's so much less typing. You type everything out once here, and then like you come over here, and then all you have to do is get the frame, you pull up your enum, you say you want to get it by ID, which is one of the things I made. And I say, okay, get this metadata, right? Call the car from the road and get that same thing we all agree on. And then get speed modifier. And as you type this stuff in, like .get GE, look at that. Speed modifiers right there. I can just hit enter, bam, it pulls it right up for me. Less typing. Why spend all your time typing and keeping everything together when you can just focus, right? So this uses speed modifiers, blah, 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 frame, frame, frame. Looks like everything's happy so far. So let's go ahead and change this to, oh, I copied out so much. Let's copy frame again. So I want to use this with the frame and the frame. And a lot of this stuff, it's going to be pretty redundant, but that was the turning, that was the left input, this is the right input. And the reason why I'm doing all this is because based on the module you have, it's kind of annoying. So, based on the, let me finish my thought. Based on the module you have, it's going to change your actual speed. So if you have this if you have in this slot this module active, then this is your new value for speed. You're going to take your frame, whatever tier frame you're on, and you're going to add that speed modifier to the actual speed modifier of the module. So you combine your speeds together so you go faster overall. You don't want one to overwrite the other or anything stupid. Just combine them, right? Make it easy. There we go. So that's all done here. Frame, 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 frame. A lot of this is double checking. Forward movement. So we have cruise control, blah, blah, blah. Cruise control speed, else. Here we go. We want to change this. Frame and frame. You guys noticing a pattern here? Oh, it's fantastic. All right, moving backwards. It's going to be the same thing. It all comes from the same place. But that's why these core changes, you have to skim through. You have to do a lot of this, the background stuff. No one sees this part of it. They just see the sexy airships they can hop in. You don't see like what what you actually have to do, what you have to keep in mind. There we go. Handles forward movement. See, that's why we that's why we label things. So again, and if you notice, the red's going away slowly yet surely. Now there is a way I can do this all. I could have copied this entire section and I could have done a keyword search for anything tier frame, and it probably would have just taken care of everything for me. But it's giving you guys a chance to see how much code we actually have to go through making one change, right? We're just changing the base stats. We're adding one. That's really it. We're adding one and changing one. Like, that's nothing crazy. But apparently it's crazy enough. Just crazy enough to work. Bam. Now this red will start to go away. Bam. And finally, this right here. Not a lot of red anymore. And that was just for my speed. Now we have to come down here. It's going to be the same thing because this is my module system. This is behind the scenes, right? So if you have the storage mod on, it's going to reduce your speed by a certain percentage. Anything speed related. But could you imagine having to change so many variables, accidentally putting in the wrong number somewhere, and all of a sudden, someone like moving backwards moves 20 times faster than moving forward just because you didn't use variables, you just decided to put raw numbers in everywhere? It'd be a nightmare. Like, I don't care what the number is at the time because the numbers change, right? Like, I just care what the variable names are. So that's what all these are doing, right? Storage, my lesser, normal, and greater storage modules are all affecting the frame speed. This right here, the cruise control module. The lesser one makes you go a lot slower. The normal one makes you go a little slower, about a third slower instead of 2/3. And the greater, there's no penalty, right? This is the last thing we have to change. And it should be all done. We should be able to spawn something completely new. Get this, and get this. There we go. That's it. All the red is gone. Let's save all of this. And I just don't want to look at it anymore. And actually, just to be a butt, I'm just going to add a 1 to this. It's going to completely change everything. It's going to have an issue. I want to see exactly where I still have this code, like the core information. And it looks like I don't really have it anywhere else. I pretty much successfully pruned it out. Maybe, potentially. Unless it's just not showing up right now, which it could be. It could be doing that. It's Eclipse. It's not perfect, but it gets you most of the way there. Okay, so next thing we're going to need to do is, if I create this, let me show you. I know what we need to do next, but let's say you're going into here. I'm actually expecting this to crash. Yes. Mainly because what I did here with the core. Like yep, see, right there. There we go. It's up and running. Let me minimize this, put it back down here, move it. There we go. Let's get a capture up for Minecraft. Oh, looks like it crashed. It's not responding. That's why it's not popping up on the screen. Now let's look at our logs here. Why is it doing that? It's probably because what I did right here. Look at it. It's trying to use the core to create some of these upgrades, the core upgrade and whatnot. See, that's why I just wanted to see. That's why I wanted to change the enum. I wanted to break it to see what points are actually still using it. Terminate. That was just that's what troubleshooting is, guys. Trial and error, right? What works, what doesn't. So let's launch it for realsies this time. Now, what we should see is when I throw the item, you should see the ball. Actually, you shouldn't see the ball because we created something new. We didn't attach any kind of texture to it. And we shouldn't see any texture for the airship, though it should still spawn. It's just not going to have a model. And I can prove to you guys. So we go into here. Oh, actually, I needed to create a new world. Because remember, I have the old version airship stuff. Let me just close this out fast. And we're going to just do this. I'm going to delete that old world, and we're going to spawn a new one. Because none of my old airships should work. I changed the core stats, and all the old airships are still using the core stats. Yeah, see? This is what it did. Version 2 core. It wasn't happy with the enum, the core, because there's no such thing as a core variable anymore. It's very unhappy. And of course, it just gets stuck like this. And it's not showing the new capture window. Close. Close. All right. Java kind of sucks sometimes. And this is one of the reasons why. Now I have to look at these two instances and see which one. Probably this one. Yep, it was that one. Excellent. There we go. So got this. Let's delete that world. It's dead to me. Creative. I know the daylight cycle. I'll have to change it, but we may have to delete the world again. Screw it. Preparing to spawn the world. This is what we do. This is mod development, guys. It's not the best. It's not the sexiest. And you're getting this all real time. You know, you notice a lot of people make videos and they're looking over and like typing out exactly what it is and everything. That's not really how coding works. Like, no one in their right mind sits there and types out paragraphs of stuff. You have building blocks, you make it small and you build up. Someone already typed out that code. They're just retyping it. I'm not ever going to do that. Never going to do that. You'll see all my failures and all my successes. All of these right now are poison to the server. They're poison to my mod. Because if you throw any of these, it's going to crash because it's not going to have the right variables. Let's throw one of these. You know, I'll just keep it gray. So right now, throw it up. Oh, it wasn't happy. Let's look at what happened. What it tried to do. Let me close out some of these windows. I have way too many things open right now. I don't need references. I don't need this. I don't need this. And I don't need that. So what happened? What happened? Something crashed. Something was fatal. Let's try and throw it again. Let's see what it did. Nope. So it was something to do with... We got to follow the trail, right? Follow the breadcrumbs. So let's go into the airship item. It comes over here, and it says, all right, entity item airship. It's throwing this out. It's all super happy. We're spawning an entity, and it's this entity. Okay, that's good. So with this entity, we're going through the world. What is sticky on my keyboard? It's weird. How did I have a Skittle on it? I haven't had Skittles in a long time. Oh my god. Ridiculous. All right. So anyways. Uh, yeah, right now you see there's nothing going on here, right? No errors are coming up, nothing's happening because we would have seen some kind of error pop up there. The airship code looks like it's fine. Let's go ahead and skin these things. Let's actually make... Oh, we have to register the entities too. I forgot to do that. See, you guys get all the mistakes too. So we're going to register a couple things here. We're going to have to go down to the init entity, and we're going to make one for... We're going to copy this, right? Because I want to make one for the airship. And it's going to be called item airship. It's not going to be version 1. It's going to be regular. And it's going to be item.airship. All the rest of this stuff, this means like how far away you can see it. True means that, actually, what is that? For register, I'm inputting my Boolean. I forgot what it was, actually. Yeah, send velocity updates. So actually seeing, where it goes when it moves around, and not have it just be kind of clippy, choppy. I want it to be smooth. So let's go ahead and save all of that. Bam. So now when we throw the item, it's actually going to be a ball and it's going to do something. Now let's make it for the actual airship. That's the other entity we want. So I'll put that right up top here. This one's just going to be called Airship. Bam and bam. What are these names, right? Let me go through this fast. Maybe you don't know how to register entities. What I'm saying is I'm taking this string. This is going to be the actual name. So when there's a crash report and it says there's a ticking entity, this is the entity's base name. It's going to be item airship if it's the little ball, or it's going to be airship if it's the actual airship. Maybe I could do entity underscore airship. Maybe I'll do it that way. Entity dot airship. So one is the actual name, one is what it's going to print out as. And this is the class it uses to create the entity. This is the delay. We're good everywhere else. And it's going to take all these and it's going to go to my register method, which is right here. And it's going to take all that stuff and it's going to put it into the entity registry, right? It already has my resource location. Like this is the actual thing. The entities, to where if you have more than one airship, it just keeps giving it an extra number, It's the little things. The little things. So we don't need that up anymore. So we registered the entities. Let's go ahead and restart. Close that out. Proceed. Let's go ahead, since it's, there we go, not responding. Close out. There we go. Let's get the big boy here. When this one loads up, now we should see it's not going to have the textures. If anything, it should pull up black and white like cubes, pretty much, when you throw them. Or not black and white, the black and purple cubes. Let's go into this world. Checking our logs. No errors. Logging into the server. And it looks like we're good. So let's go ahead and take our item, right? Get one of the good ones. Now, if we throw it, it did something. What did it do? Log in with entity 333. Looks like it's trying to pull up entity item airship version 1. Look at that, right? Why did it fail here? What is this? Why are we using entity item airship version 1? It shouldn't be in any of our code. So somewhere we still have this item being referenced. That's not good. Let's go to our items and let's backtrack this. So let's go into the airship base item, right? We have our types, blah, blah, blah. Yep, all this information, who cares? Let me just do a quick search. Let's do entity item airship v1. Any reference to it? Nope. So it's not in here. Now let's go into here. Any reference here? Oh, what is that? Why is that there? Let's see what the next one is. Oh, would you look at that? So in our base item, if the world is remote, it's trying to pull up something completely different. So let's go ahead and change that. See what I mean, guys? One simple thing, import it. One simple little mistake. That was only one place, and it bottlenecked the entire thing and screwed it up. Now, if we close it out, that's why it's taking so long when I actually hit stop for it to stop. Because right now, it's just not responding. Because something done screwed up. So, once again, save everything. I don't care that there's an error here. This is temporary. This is going to be going away. Project. Oh, what am I doing? Debug. Proceed. Now, it should be doing what we wanted to. And if not, we will continue down the trail, right? We'll see where the problems are. A little break. Like I said, guys, this is all real-time coding. I don't have anything pre-typed up. You are seeing the development process. When I want to make something, now just imagine whenever one you guys are like, oh, we want guns. How am I going to do that? Keep in mind hitboxes, because it can't blow itself up or blow you up as a player. You know, coming up with the velocity for things like that. How are you going to do an ammo system? I mean, there's a lot to be said. There's a lot of things to do. You know, it's not super easy to just pull out things and do things. So, you know, it's not me ignoring you guys when you come up with suggestions. It's me actually having to do it. So let's click. Oh, look at the cube. There we go. That's our airship, everyone. But if you actually, it's the airship. You can get in it. You can open up the inventory. Oh, actually, we can't open up the inventory yet. Because if we look here, we have to change all the graphic user interfaces because it's expecting certain things. See, that's what I said. Rewrite, it's literally a rewrite. But that is our base airship right now. Let me close this out. Close. So we'll get to this. We'll get to this because we're going to have to pass a bunch of information, but that was it. You have now made an airship. Let's make it look a little sexier. So we have the base item generating in the world. Let's give it a model. Let's give it a texture. Let's give both of them, the actual entity, a model and texture, and the airship itself when it spawns, an actual model and texture. What you saw, the white box, that is the collision box, the actual bounding box, the hit box, if you will. That is what the core entity is. That's what you interact with. The actual balloon on top that you see and all the flare is just a model. That's why you can phase through it. It's just a visual. That core little box is the actual airship. So let's go over to client. We want to go to this right here, entity renderer. And we want to copy this guy. And this is going to be for the item. So we're going to do it doesn't matter what order you register these in. This is just, easiest for me. There we go. So right now, we should have an entity item airship. Like it knows that I will want to render a texture on it. Now let's go down to the actual airship. Let's paste it right here. It's going to use the core, the renderer. There we go. Import, and it's happy. Now, basically what this is saying is, how does it know what texture and what model to give it, right? If we go over here, we're saying, okay, for the entity item airship, the little ball, right, the little cube, you're going to use this render item airship. And you're looking here like, oh, looks like it's red, it's unhappy. It's because now we have to go into the actual renderer, which should be right here. And we're going to have to make one that's not a version for each one. So we'll rename it this, go into here, get rid of version 1, get rid of version 1. Again, versioning can be such a pain, but at the time, that was the best way for me to do this, right? Like, I wasn't an amazing coder when I started this. Like, literally, it was that box that you saw is what this whole thing started out as. And a crappy little model that I put in that didn't even have a texture on it. And it, too, was a box. So, I mean, for the renderer, you guys should know how to do this already. Basically, I'm saying, okay, for this render item airship, you're going to render the entity item airship. And this is, the size, the shadow, what the texture actually is. If we look actually right here, the texture Atlas sprite, it's actually just pulling from the game particles, the item model, The item model is up here. It's pulling an invisible item. I make items in the background and I don't include them. They're invisible to people. That's how I do the icons for my achievements. That's how I do things like this, the little ball that you see. It's an item. That's all it is. I'm just putting an item texture to it. Secret's out, guys. People are going to look at this not like ever the same way. Let's import everything, and it looks like that top is happy because it's actually for this item. It's a specific renderer for the specific item. Now we just have to do it for the airship. Nice and easy, right? It's going to be the same process. Get rid of the version 1. Bring it all the way down. Here we go. Okay, get rid of version 1 here. Get rid of version 1 here. Version 1, blah, blah, blah. We're going to have a couple more here. Version 1, and that should be just, no, actually, multi-pass, version 1. And we're going to scroll all the way down to here. Version 1. Bam. Import everything. Oh, looks like we got some errors here. Setup rotation. Let's see here. So for this setup rotation, we need to go further down. That's another setup rotation. See, look, it's referencing the core here, right? It's trying to bind a texture to the wrong place. Visual balloon. Let's make it, instead of core, we'll just make this type. And instead of core, actually, this should be balloon. Oh, because this is for the balloon rendering. I mean, it's all the same. It's just a little no-no on my part. Save that. Okay, now we have to go into here and see setup rotation. Why is it unhappy? Let's take a look. Setup rotation, because it's further down and it's trying to look for the version 1 entity. It's statically casting it. You know, we need to set it to something else. Set it to that. Look at that. Everything's good to go. You'll notice a lot of the stuff commented out. Before the stream, I actually made a pass because I wanted to do the multi-texture rendering, and I got something baseline working. That's what this is, because I do a render, and for now, I'm just putting on the basic frame. You know, it's always on the on stance, like it's so basic, and it's on one texture, and then I do a render multi-pass, which is going to put another texture on top of it, this second texture. I made an array for it. It's right here, background and overlay, right? Pretty basic. Let's see it in action, because right now I should be able to import this, save it, all the errors are gone. Now, if we did everything right, which I'm pretty sure we did, when we throw the airship from the item, we should see a little ball briefly until it hits, and then when it impacts, it's going to spawn our model with our correct textures over it. It's going to have the base texture underneath, and it's going to have the texture overlay on top. But we shall see, won't we? How amazingly fun is this, guys? Pull up your cell phones, everyone. Wait for the game to, to load up. Okay, let's just delete this. I want a fresh world again. Bam. Actually, oh, I don't know why I did that. The models, the entities that are inside the world will suddenly have textures. It's an additive thing. It'll pull, it knows where to pull everything from. Just take my word for it, guys. I mean, I've yet to steer you wrong, right? So let's go in here. Let's pull up this and shoot. There it is. There's the ball, and there's our airship. Bam. Look at that. And remember, it's always on. That's the model. I have two different models, one in the off stance, one in the on stance. And actually, let me show you. See, with the smokestack coming out, it means it's on. So let me just hit escape. There we go. Nope. I want to make it to where, there we go. So you still see the steam, right? So let's go into here. Let's go into the renderer for the airship. Let's go down, and instead of frame on, let's set it to frame off. Frame on. Want to see something freaky? If you have a different model, because it's multi-rendering, I'll show you. It just puts two on top of the other. The propellers are going to be screwed up. So frame off. Watch this. Save. Look at it. It's a different frame now. The propellers are aligned. There's no smoke coming out. It did change the model. It definitely did. But it does it in real time. And see, This is the airship. It's very basic. As you can see, the little display isn't working, but this right here is using two textures, using the base iron, and let me show you again. So right here, if we go and let's just change this array texture to 0, right? Look, it automatically changed it. This is the base texture of the airship. Every single airship model is going to have the same overlay. It's going to coat the whole thing. And then it's going to rely on the second texture, this right here, from my texture array, the overlay. Save it, look at it. And that's where all the vents are. That's what I was talking about. There's 69 different skins. Like you saw, jungle wood, planks, iron, but that overlay is the same. Those engines in that model are in the same place every time. That's what I wanted to do. I'm turning 250 textures down to maybe like 75 at the most, which means it's a smaller mod, which means that it's loading less textures. Overall, good stuff. So, guys, we made an airship from start to finish based on my code. I had written a lot of the stuff already, but you got to see me make the item. You got to see the process. You got to see some troubleshooting. You got to see quite a bit, actually. How much time have I been doing this for? 2 hours, 2 minutes. You know what? This is actually a pretty good stopping point. I'm probably going to do a little more coding. Like, coding takes time. Like, we haven't even gotten into the rewrite part. That's what I'm talking about, guys. Like, when I say a rewrite, and I actually decided I think this is going to be for maybe 1.13. I don't know. It depends because I'm going to prune out all of the extra crap that I don't need, which means that if someone uses this mod when they already had ViesCraft, it's going to delete all their items and it's going to start fresh. That's what's going to happen. So that's why I'm saying if I make it for 1.13, you're already starting fresh anyways, so I can do all these huge changes and not do anything. I could actually keep adding on to this. I could put in the new stats. I could put in the new appearance system. I can put in the new everything. That way, when it finally gets updated, I can just say, okay, do whatever changes. Probably have to do a lot of changes to update to 1.13. Maybe things will be broken. I'll have to wait for Forge, which the Forge guys are actually pretty awesome. They know their crap. I don't know. I mean, it really depends. Like, if anyone wants to actually download it, maybe I'll just make a new version, right? I'll just make another project. ViesCraft Airships, version 2. No, I probably won't do that. But guys, this is it. This is it. If you like this, just watch my live streams. I play video games too. Actually, I'm probably going to be playing Rift on the Prime server when it comes out. Let's take a look at this. Bam! Boom! See, on impact, the explosion, you heard it. The little clouds of smoke. Bam! That's what I like. Bam! See, it collided with my entity. And look at that. Because it's actually something in the world. I can't really jump. But if I move out of the way, it slowly falls down. It's an airship, right? Big balloon on top. But see, that's what I mean. You could just phase right through it. Bam. All right. So let me know what you think about this. You guys want me to do more? I don't know. I'm going to be uploading this to YouTube. And I don't know. Keep it from there. All right. We'll see. I mean, I know this has actually been pretty great. Like, my friend Revolt's here, hopped on. He plays Rift too. Just hopped in to say hi. But this was really relaxing for me because I didn't have to answer 20,000 questions about other things. I was able to stay focused, explaining everything to you guys. And I mean, as long as the streams stay like this, like I may have to have Nightbot, have something in, like if people want to know what I'm developing for, what version I'm developing for, I'm going to have to add some things for Nightbot. That way I don't have to keep, answering the same questions. But I mean, as long as it stays on track and I can just focus on the coding, periodically read without having to stop for like 30 minutes to explain something before, and I'm not writing code or anything, I will keep doing this. because coding for me is fun. Like, I mean, come on, guys, we created this. This is us. It's not anything special yet, but as soon as you get the foundation, the building blocks in, and actually, I'll show you this. If we spawn one of these, bam, it's going to be the same texture because in the renderer, we don't have it to where it's actually using the metadata values yet. You know how we can check? I'll leave you with a little parting stuff here, little parting advice, we could say. What I can do is I will do this in. Actually, I could just do it in the renderer. So get that. Entity. So I'll just do it in the main renderer. I want to know what metadata type number we're using, right? So I made something called my log helper. It's not something that's in Eclipse, it's something you actually have to program. So the log helper, I want to do just an info, and let's do something here. Let's put in a string and just type in test, whatever, doesn't matter. Save. Now you see down here how all of a sudden it's spamming my chat. Test, 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 test. All down here, right below the code. That means that my helper's working. So let's go ahead and get rid of that. And the reason why it's spamming test is because it's doing it for each airship that is currently out. That's why it's so crazy. It should only be doing it 20 times a second, because that's how much, that's Minecraft ticks, like how it renders. There we go. See, there's only one. And when it stops, when there are no airships out, bam. But now what I want to do is this right here should have a different metadata value, right? It should technically have a metadata value of, this is 0, this is 1, this is 2. So it should have a metadata value of 2. Let's find out if it actually does. So I can say type equals space, and then let's just add to this string because I want to look at the entity, E-N-T-I-T-Y, if I could spell, dot. And now look at this airship burn time. This is pulling up everything from my airship, my entity airship core information. What I care about is the variable we made for type. So I could just start typing in, do meta type, meta tier type. That's the number I care about. Remember, that's the car, that's the road. That's what the data managers are all agreeing on. So let's go ahead and save this. Now down here, if it's spawning everything right, this right here should be 0. Look at that, type equals 0. Good start so far, but 0's the default. Let's see if it's working. This should be 2. Nope, if you look, it's still 0. You know what that tells me? That tells me somewhere we have something not quite working right. Or is it just that the type? Let's try and do something with the, actually nothing else. Yeah, type is the only thing we could use it with. Let's try and do it this way. Oh, why is it doing? No wonder why it's not coming up. Entity dot get type. Let's see. Why isn't this doing what I want it to do? Yeah, because I have to get frame color green. Let me look at all of my getters. So that's all the stuff for the balloons, getting the distance, getting the frame. That's not what we want, though. We want to get the actual metadata. Get meta tier type. Let's try it with this. Let's save. Nope, it's still 0. So now let's just do get metadata. I actually don't have anything to get the entity's metadata value. So that's something I'll have to add in next time. Or I could just try and figure it out now. Because we have to find a way to test this, right? We have to be able to pass this information. So let's take a quick look. Again, go through the items. So here's our item. It's going to spawn an item. So type equals 0, right? Unless there's tagged information. If there's tagged information, then it's going to use that tag. So we're passing that information, get metadata, get the frame. So it looks like everything's passing correctly here. Oh, I think I know what's going on. So we're getting the type. That's what's going on. So this right here, this type, it should be something different. The type shouldn't be really associated with the tag. This type should be this dot get metadata for this. Well, actually, it should be for the item stack. So action result, item stack. So item stack. That right there should have done it. It's not going to take effect because this is already spawned. So that right there, it still didn't do it. Oh, and I just crashed it because I got in like a tard. I hit R, which brings up the GUI, which is trying to pull something here, which we still need to fix. But yeah, so if it has a tag, it's passing that tag information. If not, it's just default. So technically, actually, I could leave this as 0. That was fine like that because I'm just initializing it. Down here, this get metadata value of the item stack. Okay, so let's follow the trail. So now let's go into this item. And in this item, world entity type in frame. So it's taking the metadata and now we're converting it from metadata to something that's the type. So now it's actually saving the metadata type. And it looks like it is passing it world position XYZ meta type. Yep, that happened. Meta type. So from there, it's going to spawn an entity with this guy. So now this is in the world, type tier in, and the meta tier type tier in is that. Now, how is this being controlled? Looks like we are calling it over here, and we're not calling it anywhere else, actually, which is a little confusing to me because we should be calling this in the saved stuff, which actually would be in here. So meta tier type, and it looks like it's in the right place. Come down to here, blah, blah, blah. There's our variable that we made, meta tier type. Right here, the type in, it's all the same. You don't have to initialize it here because I do it elsewhere. And down here, looks like the data manager's in, and it's in the right type. Keep scrolling down, blah, 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 blah. Here we go. This is what I'm looking for because we need a way to save it. So tier type tag, tier type. Don't need that much of a space there. So that's fine. Now this right here makes it to where the meta tier type is going to equal to the type tag. And that was also the type tag. I talk to myself a lot when I do this. Yes, I know. But it helps to actually hear yourself out loud. Oh, but you know what I'm doing? It would be far better to actually run the console command because right now I'm assuming that everything is. I got rid of a lot of my rendering here, so the renderer may not understand the input that I'm trying to give it. What I should be doing is actually I should be testing it through here. through the core code, because this is where it's all saved. This is where it all begins. If there's a problem here, there's going to be a problem everywhere. On update, let's just make a little space and let's paste this in. And all I can do, I can say this. There we go. So now we're actually inside. Oh, that's right, I crashed it. Close. And you notice here that it's actually, it tells you what thread. So all of this here, type 0, is on the main info kind of thread. This right here is solely on the server thread. I care about what the server has to say. Synchronizing the server to client, that'll be easier down the road and we can get to that. But the server needs to understand what that metadata value is. If the server doesn't know what it is, nothing will know because it can't pass anything on, obviously. So let's start the game. Oh, come on. Debug, proceed. Start it back up. So at the end, you guys are getting some troubleshooting techniques in. And this is how I do it. I don't know if there's an easier way to do this stuff. If there is, it'd be nice to know what it is, but I probably won't just go right on, I'll do exactly what you said. You know, I'm not going to jump right on board because it's also about being comfortable, right? My code is set up a certain way. You know, even though someone says that a way is better, it's their opinion. And, you know, it's until I use it and get comfortable with something that I could get maybe that same opinion too. I have a habit of starting fresh worlds, I know. I just like fresh environments, you know. Don't want to throw something out and miss something. You get erroneous results, it becomes a pain. Because if an airship is out at all, like that guy crashed because I opened the GUI. So the problem, there could be a root problem with that entity, with that airship. That's why, you know, clean environments all the way. This should be 0. You know, I'm just going to throw out a red one. Red's my favorite color. This, look at that. So right now, server thread, main thread. So what we need to do is go into here. Bam. All right, let's save that. Item renderer, I don't need this open. I got to start closing out some of these tabs. Don't need that open. What is this? Don't need that open. Don't need that open. Good. Limit it. So it says here, the main thread and the actual on the server thread, it's 0. Very good. Muy bien. It should be. Break it. There we go. What's this one? Oh, it says that's 0 too. So we have something wrong with how the information is being passed. Or do we? I bet you we have something wrong in some of this base code for the item, because the item is what's dictating everything here. So for instance, what I need to do is, like for the tier type, maybe I should go ahead and do this dot get metadata. And then let's put an item stack. It doesn't hurt, right? Because it's still initializing it with a number. And there will always be a number for the metadata. Always. Still nothing. Actually, let's destroy that item. Just in case. This is how paranoid I can get. Because you could have a fix in. Okay, so still nothing. You could have a fix in, and you could be wondering why it doesn't take effect. And it's because when you spawn an entity, it has what it has on it. You know, it has all the crap it has. If that makes any sense. So we have that. And if it has a tag, we're saying use the tag. If it doesn't have a tag, it's going to go with the defaults. Here we go. If I hate how sometimes, see, I had different ways of doing this. I added an extra space in there. The world is remote. We're spawning this item. The world, the actual player it's coming from, get metadata for the item stack. That is passing what it should. And then, of course, the frame, the engine, and the tier balloon. So that should be fine. Going into here, the type is oh, look at that. That's what's doing it, guys. Do you see that? One tiny, tiny, tiny issue. Frame in, frame in. So it's taking the type and it's setting the type, but then it's taking the frame and it's setting the frame type for the frame, and it's doing that correctly, but it's not taking the type input. It's just using the zeroed out frame because the frame's 0. We haven't done anything to it. So that is the reason why. Now, let's see what the game has to say. Look at that, 5. One tiny thing. It takes something that small and it's a bad day. But look at that, type 5. So even though it doesn't look like it, that means that this right now, the server sees that as 5. Now, what we can do is we can test a little further, right? I don't need this open anymore because I'm fairly confident. I don't need that open anymore. Airship base, don't need open. This right here, I'm going to cut this out, right? Because this is all server-side stuff. Let's go back to the renderer, right? Where we first started all this stuff. And let's just paste it. God, it doesn't matter. Right there. Good enough, right? Good enough. We're going to have to change this because we're going to want to, because now that we're in the renderer, we want to take a look specifically at what this model is attached to. So the actual entity itself, dot, and then let's get the type. Let's get the meta tier type. So now let's save it. Look at that. It's 5s. So this right here, whoops. This right here, the client sees it as 5. The right information. So that means we could test it further. If that's 5, that's 4, this should be 3. So the blue should be 3. Look at that. 3s. Guys, I can't tell you how important this is because now I can do something that says, I'll do this very quickly, and it's going to be just in the main renderer. I'm going to say if, we'll make a quick if statement. If the entity dot, meta tier frame equals 3, let's say. Compare it to 3, not just 1 equals, you have to do 2. So I'm saying if this is 3, we're going to add something new. We're going to put a screen, like the empty spot right there. The version 3, this right here, the blue one's going to be the only one with a screen. Let's just move this over here to get a little more space. So we'll have 0. We're going to have 3. And now you notice that 0 and 3 are spamming. It's for every model. It's the same code. And that's the 5. So we have a 0, we have a 3, and we have a 5. None of them have screens. So let's go down to here. I'll pull it right out of my code. This is the panel. Let's bind the texture for the panel so it actually renders something. Whoops. Scroll all the way up. Because I only want to call this, I want to bind a new texture to it when it has a screen. So let's save it. Look at that. This shows that it understands the data value. There's no screen in 0. There's a screen in 3 because of our if statement we just put in. And there's nothing here in 5. Now, if you do something like this, and this is just for the sake, we want it in 3 and let's say also 5, but we want them to be one or the other. If you do and, there's no way that a metadata could be more than one number. It will never happen. You got to use the or. So we're looking for 3 or 5. So let's save it. Look at that. 5 now has a screen. 3 now has a screen. 0 still does not. Let's pull out a purple. 4. What about the number in between? We'll throw it in between. And no screen. Would you look at that? This is important. We have built the roadways for our stuff, and now we can start getting into the appearance system. And that is going to be fun because the next video, I want to focus on the render. I may actually have a lot of code typed out because I still feel amped, but I feel like the video is getting a little too big. It's going to take forever as it is. But yeah, this is what we did. This is the Airship mod. Bam. So yeah, like I said, guys, let me know what you think. Let me know if you want to see something in particular. We could try and incorporate it, but I do have set things I want to do. This I can mark off on my Curse Forge page. I can actually come into here, and I can mark off having one kind of airship, because now technically we do have one kind of airship, and I can now also mark off the airship stats layouts, because I have the core layouts in. We have the type, we have the frame, we have the engine, and we have the balloon. And they're all saved as metadata values, so I can pull them up quickly. So not bad. Not bad for a couple hours, right? So again, thanks for watching, everyone. And I hope this was informative. I hope it gave you an inside look as to, if you wanted to develop some mods, um, if it give you a little fire under your butt, to jump in. Because, I mean, the way I see it is, if I get to inspire someone else to make a mod, it's a potentially fun mod I get to use in my server. Why not, right? Why not? So, yeah, if you like it, definitely give me a follow. Like I said, I stream a bunch of random things. Right now, I'm on a Rift kick. I also play World of Warcraft. I play video games in general. I play on my Minecraft server. Minecraft stuff. Close this out. Bam. But yeah, I want to redo a lot of things. I want to retouch my module system. I want to go through a lot of my base code as well and start pulling some stuff back. But yeah, I think this is good enough for now. What's our time? About 2.5 hours I've been streaming. Oh, and this is my shirt. Yep, Jack and the TARDIS. Yep, yep, my programming shirt. Yeah. Well, thank you everyone for watching. Let me know what you think of it. All right. Talk to you later. Bye.